Well, it's a little after 6:30, so I think we'll get started. I see there are some Rotarians here who came to check up on me. But I have to tell you one thing. I had my annual physical today and competency test, and I am competent for another year. First time I had it, if you don't pass, you lose your driver's license. And my son said to me, Mom, what are you going to do if you lose your license? And I said, that's not the question. What are you going to do? Anyway, I'm good for another year.
Three cheers, hip hip hooray.
Yes, well, I was asked to speak about Rotary, both internationally and locally, so here we go. Who knows what Rotary is? Who can tell me? What's the elevator definition of Rotary?
Service organization.
It is an organization of business and professional men and now women.
Yeah.
International Organization of Business and Professional Men and Women. Rotary was founded in 1905 by a young attorney named Paul Harris. He went to law school in Iowa, and one of his professors told him, go into a small town and practice law and make a fool of yourself, then go to a big city. Well, Paul didn't do that. He traveled for 5 years. He was an actor, a reporter, a seaman, hotel clerk, just did things for 5 years. Then he went to Chicago and joined a law firm named Harris, Dodge, and Brown, which is still in existence. But he was lonesome. He was a bachelor. He was from New England and knew nobody. So he had some friends. He asked a tailor, a client, and a promoter to get together and have lunch. So they decided to meet every week for lunch at each other's office, and they rotated where they ate. Hence the term Rotarians. The symbol of Rotary is a cog, and that represents the center around which everything works. The first project that the Rotarians did in Chicago was a public toilet. Today, as an international organization, Rotary has 1.4 million members in 200 countries, 46,000 clubs. Now that includes Interact and Rotaract, which is the high school and college version leading up to the adult version. The Rotary world, of course this is a behemoth to deal with, is divided into 34 zones. Grove City is in zone 33. There are 535 districts in these zones. We are District 7280, and that includes Washington, D.C., Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. So it's a huge organization. The Rotary motto is service above self. In 1932, a young man named Herb Taylor was asked to, he was a businessman, he was asked to leave his business and take over a company that was in receivership. And he was asked to bring it back from bankruptcy. So he thought, I need to find a simple code of ethics that people can function under. So he came up with 7 guidelines. That was too many. So he worked some more, and he got it down to 4. And those 4 guidelines are, of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Now you think about those things. Let me repeat them. Of the things we think, say, or do. Now this was 1932. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Wouldn't our world be a different place today if we operated on those tenets? I think it's important, and I'm an old teacher, so I'm passing these out. I made copies, pass them around, and you can leave what's left at the back. Think about those 4 things. He gave them to all his employees, the employees who were all religions, all nationalities, and all age groups. And he said, use these in everything you do, in your advertising, in your interaction with your competitors, when you're dealing with the other person's products. And it worked. Took a couple of years, but he pulled the company around using those guidelines. So read them, think about them. I think they're pretty good. Rotary is really a vocational organization. When it was started, everyone had a, what's the word? We had a designation. We had to be a certain profession. So, I can't think of the word. It's in here. So there would be one realtor in a business. There would be one doctor. There would be one attorney, one pharmacist, etc. Well, then, that was pretty limiting. So they became creative. So then there was one medical doctor, family practitioner, osteopath, one residential real estate, one commercial real estate. They branched out to be able to bring in more people. And every Rotarian was to attend a weekly meeting. If you missed more than 3 meetings, you were asked to leave. You had to attend meetings at other towns, other meetings, and you had to get an attendance card from the secretary of that club. And each club, every month, had to turn in their attendance report. And we passed out newsletters monthly. And in the newsletter, the club's attendance ranking was listed. Well, Grove City had a problem. We had a gentleman who most of you would have known, Mike Wary, who was a loved attorney who never came. And nobody had the courage to tell him he was in violation of our rules. So all of a sudden, the attendance policy just kind of fell by the wayside. And our club was usually the bottom of the pile. We had 44, 45, 46 clubs, and we were usually the bottom. And it kind of became a badge of honor that we were down at the bottom. But nobody ever told Mike. I mean, he was oblivious to it. Then something happened. In 1987, the Supreme Court passed down a decree that the clubs could no longer exclude women, and they had to allow women in. Well, in Grove City, Norm Krill and Al Lythan Sr. were not going to be in the club. They were going to quit. They weren't going to be in a club that had women. However, our club, now my husband joined in 1981. I didn't join until 1991. But he would come home and tell me these stories. He came home and the board decided to invite 10 women into the club. I only remember 5 of them. Mary Gray, who was the administrator at Grove Manor. Nancy Parker, who had some capacity at Cooper, I don't remember. Lillian Rear from the newspaper. Nancy Hunsinger and Sally Lowing. Nancy Hunsinger and Sally Lowing opted not to join. They felt it was a male organization and they didn't want to join. So they didn't. But they took in five, at least five members. And Al Eithan and Norm Krill did not resign. About the same time, an international president from Washington, PA, who was an attorney named Chuck Keller, nice man, decided he was going to do something pretty amazing. He was going to start a program to eliminate polio from the world. So the Rotary Clubs partnered with the World Health Organization and the Gates Foundation, and they started raising money. Our club pledged $1,000 a year for 10 years. 10 members, my husband was one of them, pledged $100 a year for 10 years, so that gave $1,000 each year. Then other members also pledged. And over the years, Rotary has raised over $500 million to eliminate polio. As of when I pulled this off the internet last week, there's one case in Afghanistan, one case in Pakistan, 5 cases in Nigeria, 2 cases in Tajikistan. So we've made a good dent in it. But Rotary had, and this district had, well, Rotary International had what they called NIDs, which was National Immunization Days. And Rotarians would go into third world countries and would go back into the bush country and give the drops to the babies. Well, that was horrendous, because the mothers they didn't know what this was, and they were frightened that the people whom they didn't know were giving drops, putting in their babies' mouths. And I think we can appreciate more today, in light of the reticence to take the coronavirus vaccine, how these mothers must have felt. But they persevered and obviously have made an impression. I was at a meeting in New Wilmington at Westminster College of students between their junior and senior year in high school. And this was in 2004. And 2 men from New Wilmington had just come back from India, and they were talking about their NID. And they were crying. It was such an emotional experience. And these college kids were just looking at each other like, what are these men talking about? You know, they did not understand the significance of polio. I can't swim today because I wasn't allowed to go swimming. I had to take a nap every day so I didn't get polio. I mean, those are things I remember. And Grove City had a polio epidemic. Your mother had polio. There were many cases in Grove City. We remember that. But the kids, the teenagers today, have no idea what they're talking about. So that's just one of the things that Rotary International has done. Another international project that I had forgotten about, but came to mind last week when the president of Haiti was shot. An educator in Erie started a program that she taught. Now, in Haiti, in order to get into advanced education, you have to take a test in French. Yeah. Except the language of the country is Creole. So the children don't know French. So when they get up into high school to take this test, they can't. So she started a program where she taught high school students to go back to the elementary level and work with these kids and start teaching them French, and so that when they came up, they would be able to pass the test and go on for further education. So that's the kind of project that Rotary International does. We work with promoting peace, peace scholars, young people who can negotiate in difficult situations, obviously fighting disease. We provide clean water in third world countries. Money is provided to women to teach them a skill. One of the things that is done is they purchase sewing machines that are made locally and give them to women and teach them how to make things so that they can support themselves and their families. There's also youth exchange. Now, youth exchange was very popular in Grove City. Some of us here have been involved in it. A student would go abroad for a year, and then somebody from that country would come here. My older son, Michael, spent a year in Indonesia. My younger son spent a year in Thailand. And as a mother, I can tell you, of the things I've done in my life, the hardest thing was putting Mike on a plane to Indonesia. I mean, that was just, even thinking about it now, is difficult. It wasn't as hard to send Joe because I knew Mike had come back. But that opened up a world to them. Mike did his student teaching in Dublin, Ireland, and then he came back. Joe has never come back. He went to Thailand, he's been to China, he's been to Taiwan, he's been to Minneapolis, South Carolina, Texas, and now he's back in Texas. So it just opened up a world to him that certainly living with us would never have happened. Plus, we had exchange students in our home. They would live with us. John had a student, John Inman had a student. My husband was in charge of all outbound students in Northwest Pennsylvania. Now, when I say Northwest Pennsylvania, our Rotary district goes from Cranberry, north of Pittsburgh, to Erie, the Ohio line to Du Bois. So that's the area that we deal with. And we used to send out 14, 16, 18 kids, and then have that many staying in Rotarian homes. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful exchange program. The world situation as it is, it's kind of fallen by the wayside. We also had a program called Group Study Exchange. And this was a Rotarian would get a group together of 4 young professionals between the ages of 20 and 40. And he would lead them to another country. And those young professionals would meet up with people of their profession and spend time. We had a group from, is that me? That's you, Megan. Mine's at home. We had one group from South Korea. And usually someone stayed at our house because we had lots of bedrooms and beds. So we had 2 men staying with us, and Dr. Parks was the head of the team. He was a very traditional South Korean gentleman and spoke no English. And medical doctor, so Bernie Hoyt was taking him around. Now, Dr. Parks spoke no English, and Bernie couldn't hear. They spent a day together. We had them for breakfast, and it was interesting. But one of the men at our house was a civil engineer, and he was here at the time that Chestnut Street was being rebuilt. So my husband made arrangements to meet the project engineer and show him the project that we were doing. I love this picture. That's my husband in the middle with his hard hat on backwards. Whoops, yeah, that was my husband. So we were very proud of this. Well, then the man from South Korea showed us the bridges that he had built. And they were bridges that you could see in the distance, the end of the bridge, you know, nothing like our Chestnut Street bridge. But, you know, that was part of the experience.
Yeah.
We had a group from Brazil, and one of the people was a young woman who was an attorney. And so Mike Wary took her, and she sat on the bench with him for the whole day. So they would spend, 2 or 3 days with us, and then they would move on to other parts of the district. And then our group would go to their country. Wonderful cultural exchanges. Couldn't always understand what everyone was saying, but it was good. Our local Rotary Club was started in 1922. Now, you've all heard of the Commercial Club. They were the movers and shakers of the town. Well, there was a Rotary Club in Sharon and one in Newcastle. And they kept talking with the Commercial Club members to get organized and get a club started. Well, they didn't want to do that. They were afraid they would lose their effectiveness if they became something other than the Commercial Club. Then they heard there was a Kiwanis Club forming. So they decided they better get their act together and become Rotarians. So the Kiwanis Club was 6 months older than the Rotary Club. But we were chartered in May of 1922. And many of the first members are pictured there on the wall. At the end of the time, I'm going to pass out to you, the teacher in me again. This is a synopsis of the history of our Rotary Club. And then the second page is a letter, it's called Memories, that Weir Kepler wrote. And he talks about the forming of the Commercial Club. And this letter's been floating around. I just think it's neat. And since we're talking about the history of the Rotary Club, I think it's appropriate that you have copies of it. So that's something that you can take out. The Newcastle Rotary Club was only the 8th club chartered in Rotary International. That's one of the first clubs. The Rotary Club was one of the founding members of the Historical Society. And in 1997, when Rotary celebrated its 75th anniversary, we gave to the community the Memorial Garden. That was our gift to the town. Now, we worked with Terry Farron, who was a Rotarian and the borough manager. Terry Farron is also the borough manager who was responsible for us getting the money to buy this building. So Terry has been a very good friend to the borough over the years. When Rotary celebrated its 100th anniversary, the Rotary Club planted 100 trees along the bike path at the end of Greenwood Drive. Now, I use the term "we planted" loosely. John, you were there, but we avail ourselves of the Barge Boys. Barge stands for Behavior and Restorative Justice. And they are boys from George Jr., whose part of their sentence is community service. And they love to go out and do things, so they helped us. Your husband, Russ, drove an old truck, and we had, in fact, you're still driving that truck, aren't you? No.
No,
It's a different, anyway, we loaded his truck up and drove along the bike trail, and the van and the Barge Boys planted the trees. And Kevin Desi. In 2005 and 2006, our club got a matching grant from Rotary International, and we provided desks and school supplies to 10 schools in Mali. It was a big project. Now, I skipped somewhere along the line. The Rotary financial end is run by the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation has several parts, but the main entity is one of the top, if not the top, foundation in the world. Every cent that is given to the Rotary Foundation goes to Rotary projects. When you make a donation, it is invested for 3 years. The interest off that money runs the foundation. At the end of the 3 years, that money then goes to world projects. It's not like the ASPCA that is advertising right now with the poor animals. 3 cents of every dollar you give to the ASPCA goes to the animals. So if you want to give money to something that is a worthwhile cause, the Rotary Foundation is where you turn. Locally, we give scholarships to high school students. We pay for the Learn to Swim program at, what is it, 3rd or 4th grade? Third? Okay. Anyway, the Learn to Swim program. The DARE program, and don't ask me what DARE stands for, but it's where the police go into the schools and develop a rapport with the students and talk to them about drugs and just get to know them and not be the boogeyman enemy. We provided 3 symposiums, ethics symposiums to high school students. We had between 180 and 200 students where we gave them examples of conflict resolution situations based mainly around the 4-way test. That was the basis of it. We have a program called RYLA, R-Y-L-A, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. This is a program that was started in Australia and has gone around the world. And it's for students who are going on to college. They're recommended by their guidance counselors, and it's a week-long program. They do it between their junior and senior year so that they can practice their leadership skills in their senior year. Then we started a program in 2004 called ROVA, Rotary Outstanding Vocational Award. We were trying to figure out something that we could do with vocational students. Everything is geared toward the academic student. And we had a committee, and Rachel Martin, who was the director of the Mercer County Career Center, excellent director, and she was there, and one of the men said, well, let's pour concrete with the boys. And Johnny said, I can't do that. And somebody else said, well, let's build a brick wall. And finally Rachel stepped in and she said, you know, everything we do is for the at-risk student. She said, we have extremely bright students who are going on to college. Why don't we do something for them? So Rachel Martin, along with Fred Kaiser, who was the guidance counselor in Greenville, they put together a program for ROVA, and it was an overnight, and it is an excellent program. We get between 80 and 100 students every year from all over Northwest Pennsylvania. But a sad story, sad part of that, we have tried to get this project out of Western Pennsylvania. People aren't interested in doing anything with vocational students. The fact that when my car breaks down, I need a vocational kit. When my air conditioner quit, I needed somebody who has vocational training. Even some of the clubs in our district, they didn't want to send anyone to a vocational program, no. I have personally gone to a zone meeting with this program. Judy Hughes, who's from Slippery Rock and lives here in Grove City, has taken it to an international convention. Another gentleman has taken it to an international convention, and the interest is not there to pick up something for vocational kids. Everything is geared toward the academics, which is too bad. Anyway, we pay for a handicap playground out in the park. We just put in cornhole toss out at the park. We pay for books for Dolly Parton, the Dolly Parton book program. So everything, or almost everything, that we do locally is geared toward the young people. That's where our emphasis is. Now, on a personal note, in 2001, I was asked to serve as district governor. Now, this is a big deal. This means that I was going to be the Rotary International representative for Northwest Pennsylvania. and I was responsible for 44, 45, 46 clubs. So it wasn't something that I was asked, and I said, sure. We had to talk about it, because it was a financial commitment, and it was a time commitment. So I made this stupid comment of saying, oh, it'll be fun to go and have lunch with 44 clubs. My husband reminded me that several times during the year. But I accepted the position, and I was the district governor in 2003, 2004. The first district governor from Grove City was Morgan Barnes in 1944 and 1945. Then I was the second one from Grove City. Fred Brenner, who just retired from the college, came along a couple years after me. So we haven't had many, but we've had some. The training for these events is on the international level. So if you remember, I said there were 535 districts. That meant we had an international convention with 535 people. It was in Anaheim, California. And everything was formal. Tuxedos, gowns, whole 9 yards. I loved it. And for those of you who knew us as a couple, my husband was tall and svelte, and I thought very handsome in a tuxedo. And then there's short, dumpy me. And so in this male-dominated venue, I can't tell you the number of people that came up and congratulated my husband on being district governor. Now, he had on the badge that said spouse of, and I had the badge that said district governor, and he would just say, no, no, it's my wife. Vicente Fox, the former governor of, president of Mexico, came up and congratulated him. You know, you couldn't get upset. He was just, that's Rotary. That's Rotary. So, anyway, we had interesting times. That was a period of our life that we talked Rotary from the first cup of coffee in the morning to the last drink at the end of the day. I mean, Rotary literally was part of our life. John Inman can attest, I would send him emails because he was part of my committee and he was in charge of our conference. And I would send him emails at 3 a.m. in the morning, and he would email back a.m. or p.m. It was a.m. But we had a good year. There were there was one situation that arose that because I was a woman, the way I was treated was very different than the way I would have been treated had I been a man. And it was so bad. Members of the club, including one of the elderly gentlemen who was one of the founding members of the club, called me and apologized. The way I was treated, they didn't like, first of all, they didn't like women in the club, and they didn't like a woman telling them what to do. And I got to the point I wouldn't go to that club by myself. I took my husband, and I hid behind him. Anyway, we had a good time. We had to have a conference. What was it called?
Oh, district conference.
District conference at the end of the year. That's what John was chairman of. And it was the 99th year of Rotary International. So I said, let's have every club put together a display of what they have done in the history of their club that they're proud of. And we had a huge room with the displays. Diane Lacey, who was one of our members, was in charge of that. And then I asked all the past district governors to come and, for 5 minutes, tell us one thing that happened during that year. And even the old goat who was mad at me and called me a loser showed up. So that was very good. But we did something that was unusual. I was trying to do things that would get everyone involved and together. So I called my counterpart in the Lions Club and I said, how about if we collect eyeglasses, can you use them? He said, oh yeah, there is a prison in Meadville for women, and they have taught the women to analyze the lens, and then all the glasses are sent to Guatemala. They have a terrible eye problem because of the UV rays in that area. So I said, okay. So this was a contest. What club could collect the most eyeglasses? Kathy Blank, who was president of the Elwood City Club, oh, she was working so hard, she was going to get that. They had over 200 pair of glasses. A couple days before the conference, the man from the Cranberry Sunrise Club called me and he said, Skip, I have 8,000 pairs of glasses.
Oh my God.
And I said, 8,000? He said, do I have to bring them? And I said, yeah. I was out in the parking lot when he pulled in. He had a Chrysler 300 and there was barely room for him in there. So the people came and we had a total, John was in charge of counting them. We had 10,191 pairs of glasses. And the man from the Lions Club was absolutely floored. He had to call a friend to come with a flatbed on the back of his truck to get them all home. So apparently that made the Lions Club international newsletter. So it was a good year. It was a busy year. You have withdrawal symptoms after your year as district governor because all of a sudden you don't get emails, your phone doesn't ring, and you think, where'd everyone go? But it was a good year. And I had John Inman and Diane Lacey. We had a good team. So we had a good year. At least I think we did. Over the years, somehow my husband was the historian of our club. And he had all this stuff, boxes of it. So I got disgusted one day and I put together a photo album of pictures. This is the history of the club, and this has correspondence and newsletters. There's Stuart Kettler's, that's the original memory that he wrote. All things pertaining to the club back into the 50s. Then this is more current. And a lot of pictures. These are up in the community organization. So when this is over, I will take them back upstairs and leave them on the center table. Then this is a book that I put together on the Memorial Garden. This has the original plan that we hired an architectural firm from Pittsburgh to come up with a plan, and this was the original plan that they came up with. This program actually started along Greenwood Drive. In the 80s sometime. Smack Montgomery, some of you remember Smack, wanted to have rhododendron put down Greenwood Drive. And it became kind of a community project. People would buy a rhododendron in memory of someone. And they sent me letters, and I kept all the little letters that people had sent, in memory of my husband or my aunt or somebody. So we had 150 some rhododendron down along Greenwood Drive that disappeared. I mean disappeared. There wasn't even a stick left. Whether the deer ate them, the snowplows took them out, we didn't know. So one day I went to Terry Farron and I said, is there anything we can do to replace these? And that's how we got started with the Memorial Garden. He had been trying to think of some way that he could get a group together to do something out in that area of the park. And so that's how it got started. So this shows pictures, John, your picture's in here, of people wheeling wheelbarrows and digging holes and planting. So this is kind of the history of our club from 1922. Any questions? No questions?
How many members are there today?
Well, that's a good question. I kind of avoided that. We had, at the most, we had 60, 70 members. Now, very poor attendance, but we had that many. You know, a lot of people joined because they wanted in their obituary that they're a Rotarian. Sorry to say, yes, yes. But I asked our treasurer last week, our renewals were due the end of June, and he had 12 renewals. Now, some of the renewals come in after the fiscal year turns over July 1st. People whose companies pay their dues, send them in after July 1st. But last Thursday, Sean Sweeney is our president, and he and I were the only two that showed up for the meeting. So the pandemic has taken a toll. We met virtually over the winter. We're back meeting out at the park, and we'll see. You know, time will tell. I really am not real optimistic. I think the day of the service club may be done, but you know, we're trying. We always sold strawberry shortcakes, and there's pictures in here of us. We used to buy the strawberries and cut them up, you know, have fun time, and then we got to buying the frozen strawberries, but we didn't have enough people to man the booth for 3 days. I can't do it anymore, and we didn't have enough people. One year we had enough for Friday and Saturday, and we ran out of supplies on Sunday, and boy did we get in trouble. Fortunately, the man that was in charge was the nephew of Mary Kay Maddox, so he got the brunt of the problem. We didn't, but we didn't have the people to man it. So far twice we've sold strawberry shortcake out of Mercer County State Bank on a Saturday, and you know, that's how we get our money to fund the scholarships and the programs, so we'll see what happens.
Skip, is that a trend that you hear is happening?
Oh, yes.
Not only in the
Now-
United States districts, but internationally?
Internationally, before the pandemic, internationally, Rotary was growing. In the United States, it was declining. All the service clubs are gone in Grove City, except for Rotary. There is a Lions Club that meets every other week at the Leesburg Church.
That's right.
But other than that, there are no service clubs in the area. They're all gone.
Skip, my middle son Adam was a RILA student, and when he applied to Waynesburg University for a Bonner Scholarship, which is a community service scholarship, that RILA was very beneficial to him. Is that program still in effect? They
Well,
still
the
pick
last 2
students?
years they didn't because of the
Yeah,
pandemic.
but other than that, it's still.
We're hoping it starts up. We're hoping ROVA starts up again, because they really, they make a difference in the kids' lives. They really do. They give them confidence. The first time we had ROVA, there was a little girl that came, and she was so scared. She was green, and I'm not exaggerating. And by the end of that program, she participated with the musician in some of the acts. She just blossomed that day, you know, and it's an overnight, just different experiences, different people, and meeting different people. I mean, these are kids from all Northwest Pennsylvania, so they're good programs. Any other questions, comments?
The Mercer Rotary met for a while at the Votech School. They had the luncheon there, and so when the ROVA, the winners or the participants would come in and address the crowd, and it was nice to see them. And the president started out as a RILA student when he was a young kid, and that's what got him started down in Texas, but he was a RILA student.
Yeah.
And so he's kept his interest to
Yeah.
this day.
You also had 1 month foreign exchange students.
Yes.
Because my daughter, we did that with my daughter, who's a girl from Sweden, they exchanged.
Okay, and there's a 3-month program. There's several different programs. There used to be a program, both our boys went on it, that they went to Germany for a month, and then the German kids came back here for a month. And when we had the district governors come and tell what they had done, Bill Blank from Elwood City was the one that started that. And he said he remembered signing the contract with Pan American Airlines to rent a plane to take all these kids over and then back. And it made 3 or 4 trips getting them all over and back home. And he just laughed. I mean, that was an experience signing that contract. But yeah, there have been lots of different programs. And I couldn't get our daughter to stay in Pittsburgh and she went to school down there. So, you know, kids are different. Any other questions? Okay, well, that's the story of Rotary, and here, I'll pass these out. I think you'll enjoy this.
Rotary has also given money to the Historical Society.
Oh, yes, yeah, we were one of the founding members.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pass those around.
Well, thanks, and any of you, if this is your first time here in the building and you're not a member of the Grove City Area Historical Society, I encourage you to pick up one of our newsletters. It contains the fall speaker series in it, what we're offering for this fall. And we're happy to be able to do that at no charge to our guests here. But as we are a nonprofit, we do ask if you are willing and able, we have a donation box out there. We'd appreciate our donation to the Historical Society, because we really exist solely with volunteers. Nobody's paid, do memberships and donations to the Historical Society keeps our organization going. So thank you, and we have cookies and punch over there.
One more.
Partnered with the Lions Club. Have you ever thought about partnering with other organizations like the Mercer County Special Olympics and doing something with them?
Linda Griffin, who was district governor after me, wanted to partner with young business professionals. I don't know what the name is, but she worked on that. Whether she did anything with it or not, I don't know. But yeah, you know, we should work together. Certainly, we had a good experience with 10,191 pairs of glasses. Yeah, we thought it was crazy too.
Where did they come from? Did people donate?
People donated them. I think some eye clinics closed in that area because they took frames as well as glasses. They needed frames also, so I think that was part of it. I was floored when he said I had 8,000 glasses. No, this was Cranberry. He was in Cranberry, so yeah. Bedtime.